Чтобы узнать что-то новое, надо отправиться в неизвестное, поэтому мы приехали в замечательный город Санкт-Петербург на пресс-конференцию Джорджа Мартина. Но так как мы не местные, негласное правило гласит, нужно сначала показать достопримечательности.
Russia 24. I'd like to ask you about the pressure. I'm sure you feel a lot of pressure about your upcoming book and the upcoming episodes of Game of Thrones. How do you resist it? Do you switch off your phone, or do you still use your email and it's okay for you?
Yes, there is a lot of pressure, and more in recent years. I don't really have a good answer for that. I do the best I can. I pretty well work, at least when I'm not traveling, I work 7 days a week, except during American football season. I do watch a lot of American football on Sundays, so I take Sundays off. But it's hard to keep up. One of the things that's transformed my life in this last decade and a half is the sheer popularity of the show and the books has made my life considerably more complicated, to the extent that I've hired assistants. I think it was 10 years ago in 2007 I hired an assistant for the first time in my life. I've never had one. Now I have 5, and even then there sometimes seems to be too much work. The best times are the times when I can lose myself in the story. When I put the outside world away and I boot up the computer and I go to Westeros, and then the world outside vanishes and I forget all about the pressure and the deadlines and everything else, and I'm just caught up with the characters and the scene and what will happen next.
Internet-проект Дуэльда. Hi George, welcome to Russia. I hope you like it here, and I'm sure you will feel the love. So the first part of my question is kind of serious. As you know, we have this colossal literary tradition, the spirit of which is sometimes conceptualized as Tolstoyevsky. Do you think it's possible for a Russian language author to become as influential in global pop culture as you have become, if they don't write in English? And the second part of the question is something you said earlier that intrigued me. You said that your work kind of stalls when football season starts. What's your favorite American football team? And do you agree that Tom Brady is the GOAT?
Tom Brady is certainly not the GOAT. He's a great quarterback, but he works for the evil empire. And, you know, because I'm a fan of the New York football Giants and the New York Jets. The Giants have defeated Tom Brady in two Super Bowls. So that would make Eli Manning the GOAT. But actually, I think it was probably Joe Montana or Johnny Unitas. The GOAT, by the way, is greatest of all time, for those of you who don't follow American football. Could it be possible for a Russian language author to become as influential? Well, certainly the authors you mentioned, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and so forth, are enormously popular on world literature. As for a contemporary author, I don't know. Anything is possible, I suppose. The fame that I've achieved here, which is very much a mixed blessing, let me assure you, in recent years, I think has a couple of reasons, and one of them is the success of the television show. Game of Thrones is certainly the most successful television show in the history of HBO, even though they've had some huge previous hits in shows like Deadwood and The Sopranos and many of their comedies. But HBO, I think, or Game of Thrones is now broadcast in virtually every country in the world. So, and that has helped the success of my books in every country in the world, as Chris here, who sells them in all of those countries, can testify. I'm now in 47 different languages. So to be influential on a similar scale, an author, whether he's Russian or French or Mongol or Vietnamese or any author, would first have to achieve that kind of global recognition there. The other thing that does help me is the fact that English, in the modern world, English is so widely spoken around the globe, which helps. I mean, in every country I visit, and I have traveled widely in recent years, I meet people who have read my novels, and I always ask them, do you read it in, I was just in Finland, and I met many Finnish fans, and I think I met more Finnish fans who were reading the books in English than who were reading the Finnish editions. So it helps that I'm an English speaker in an age when English has achieved this sort of thing. That I don't think that would work as easily for a Russian speaker. But I do think we live in a global world, and the world is shrinking more and more every day. And I'd like to see more back and forth. English books are translated in 47 languages in my case, and many more in the cases of like J.K. Rowling and Stephen King and so forth. But we don't often get the reverse. We don't get the books from other countries being translated into English. I'd like to see more of that and more of the cross-fertilization. I think literature and indeed civilization can only benefit for that.
Здравствуйте, Людмила Егоршина, Литуаль. Его книги имеют отсылки к реальной истории, как, например, «Война алой и белой розы». А изучал ли он что-то про русскую историю? Например, Дотракийцы похожи на монгольские племена, которые совершали нашествие на Россию.
The Dotraki are certainly inspired by the various steppe peoples of Asia, of which the Mongols were one very prominent group. But they're not exclusively Mongols. I mean, there were also the Huns 1,000 years before. There were the Alans. There's an exhibit in the British Museum right now about the Scythians, which they're advertising as the Scythians, the real Dothraki. So the British Museum seems to think that Dothraki were Scythians. They're actually probably a little bit of all of that, and also some of the Plains Indian tribes of America, such as the Cheyenne and the Sioux, and with some fantasy elements thrown in. So that's the way I like to mix this with that. I don't do a trait. I take my inspiration from history, but I don't just file off the numbers and put on a new name and relate what happened in history. I like to mix and match and change things and add a little fantasy elements. I think that makes for a more entertaining story. As for inspirations from other aspects of Russian history, no, unfortunately, because I don't know. I mean, I know a great deal about the Wars of the Roses and the 100 Years' War and the Albigensian Crusade in France and the Crusades in general. I've read a lot of histories about that. Unfortunately, I only read in English, so there are not a lot of really good, detailed histories of medieval Russia available in English for me to steal from. If I find some, I'd be glad to let myself be influenced more.
Здравствуйте, Екатерина Соловьева, газета «Собеседник». Как вы относитесь к пародиям на себя? Например, вот пародия была в сериале «Саус Парк».
That's very strange. As a writer, you kind of actually look forward to having a work that's popular enough that you see parodies of it on popular television shows. And to the extent that there have been various sketches on shows like Saturday Night Live and Seth Meyers and South Park that use Game of Thrones and Salt, Ice and Fire for their material, I'm flattered. but I never in my wildest dreams thought they'd actually parody me, the writer, and not the characters that I created. So that's very, very surreal. It's been in South Park, it's been in Saturday Night Live, Conan O'Brien has done something. I'm seeing cartoons about myself. It's all very strange, but I guess it comes with the territory.
Коротая Вадари, телеканал Санкт-Петербург. Мистер Мартин, скажите, пожалуйста, бывали ли у вас случаи, когда вам хотелось глобально изменить судьбу персонажа уже после того, как большая часть книг была написана?
No, I'm pretty satisfied with the fates of my characters in the books. Considered purely as a literary question. One of the curious things about the television show, of course, is when the television show gears up and you visit the set and you meet the actors who are playing these characters, you get to know them as human beings and in some cases become friendly with them, and that does introduce a certain element of guilt that you know that you've essentially fired them sometimes just a few months in the future or a year ahead. You're meeting someone and shaking their hand and saying, great to know you, and then you're thinking, oh, I killed you horribly 2 years from now. So sometimes you kind of wish you hadn't pushed your friend their job. But fortunately the books were written so far in advance of the TV show that I didn't have to actually deal with that issue. The people who were dead were already dead before I met the charming young actors who were going to be portraying them.